What is your rank?
Well, I'm retired from the Air Force as a colonel, '06.
What did you do in Vietnam?
In Vietnam, I was a captain, and I was the aircraft commander of the Airborne Battlefield Combat Control Center that had the air battle staff that controlled the air war. There was a lot of combat traffic in the battle area, and so they had airborne controllers that would clear the fighters, bombers, tankers, and observation aircraft in and out of combat areas so there wouldn't be a traffic conflict. Also, we had to have authorization to hit certain targets, and the air battle staff that I flew in the back of the aircraft was authorized to do that. Airborne Battlefield Combat Control Center, they called the mission I flew ABCCC, Airborne Battlefield Combat Control Center. C-130 Hercules, 4-engine tactical transport.
And where were you stationed?
Udorn, Thailand, Royal Thai Air Force Base. It's in a northern province, a little bit to the east of Chiang Mai province. It's actually 30 miles south of Vientiane, Laos, and the Mekong River is the border between northern Thailand and southern Laos. Laos also borders on Vietnam, and the Mekong, which runs along the border of Laos and Thailand, also goes to Vietnam. The insurgency of North Vietnam, they would bring their supplies for war down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and the Ho Chi Minh Trail was in North Vietnam, and then it went into Laos, and then continued into South Vietnam.
I've heard there was bombing in Cambodia because of supply lines there. Were you anywhere near as that?
Yes, it was. And incidentally, it's interesting that our countrymen, many of them that were anti-war, were outraged that we would bomb in a neutral country, but it didn't seem that it bothered anybody that the enemy was using the neutral country to escape being stopped supplying their soldiers in the South.
Did you know a lot of people who went into the war?
Yeah, a matter of fact, you mentioned Mr. Franzine, our class president. I graduated from high school, Badger High, in 1964. In our class at Badger High School, after we got out of high school, I would say, not most of them, but just about all my friends that I'd gone to grade school and high school with ended up either being drafted or eventually joining the Army, Navy, or Marine Corps or Air Force. But most of the fellas that I was in school with ended up being in the military during the Vietnam War. And some of them never went to Vietnam, but most of them did. And interestingly enough, not one man was killed. There were quite a few Purple Hearts, which is wounded in combat, but we did not lose anybody from the class of '64 to a combat loss.
What's your opinion on the Vietnam War?
The Vietnam War, it's a very complex thing. Very few people understand why we went into Vietnam. We belong to, like they have the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and it's an alliance in which you say if a member nation is attacked, we will go to their defense. And America was a signatory to the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization that said if a member nation was attacked, we would come to their defense. With us in South Vietnam were the Republic of Korea and other CETO members, Australia, they were there. But that's what started the war, as the communists came into South Vietnam, which incidentally had a corrupt government. It was not a democracy as we know it, but it was naked aggression. The political decisions that ran the war were never to win the war. It was to stop the invasion of the South. People who are educated or career military have a hard time reconciling a limited war where the objectives are determined by politicians and there is no victory. And it's an old saying from the Korean War was the first no-win war this country ever fought. the objective of the war was never to win the war. And so it's difficult to sit down and explain to young people that we committed American lives to a conflict in another part of the globe in a war that we never had any intention of winning.
What would you say is the most common misconception about Vietnam?
That we lost the war. In fact, the American military never lost the battle. I mean, the battle of Khe Sanh, the siege of An Loc, or everything like that. Given the restraints that we were required to operate in, we didn't lose anything. But we never intended to win. We never invaded the North. They used precision bombing, but they had the capability of bombing Haiphong Harbor, railroad yards, and like that. Somebody said in my presence one time that the Vietnam War proved that you can't bomb a people into submission. And I said, well, you clearly don't understand. We never intended to bomb people into submission, because if we had that, we would have won the war. So the end of the Vietnam War wasn't so much a defeat, it was the end of the national resolve, where there never was a national resolve. And if there's any lessons to be learned, there are a lot of people like me that I would be against committing American lives to any conflict that we had no intention of winning.
Are there any common misconceptions about war in general?
Certainly. I like this one. There are probably no noble wars. There are only noble warriors.
Is there anything you want people to know?
No, I just think that the best and the brightest that I knew and I served with put on a uniform and went off and did what their country bid them to do. There were many that said, hell no, I won't go, and went to Canada. But I would say that each and every one of my classmates that was given the enormous responsibility of serving in the military during a non-popular war performed their duties with honor and intelligence. And I'm not sure all of them came back as proud to have served as I was, but the guys that I was with in Southeast Asia were some of the finest men I ever knew.
All right, thank you.